Welcome to Ageless Island, your destination for staying strong, sharp, and ageless. For those of you who are new to my podcast, I'm going to reintroduce myself. I am a mother and grandmother. I am married. I'm a 60-year-old Air Force veteran, and I'm passionate about wellness and a believer in personalized health. So if you're new here, what I've done with my videos is I try to blend cutting edge science with real world experience, things I've tried, what's worked for me and what hasn't, to help you be able to make some decisions and take charge of your own health. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that's affecting millions of people, and that's statins. But more importantly, I want to talk about one simple, affordable test that might help you be able to avoid statins. It's called the Coronary Artery Calcium Scan, or the CAC. And I think it's one of the most eye-opening tests that I've personally taken in my health journey. So whether you've been told your cholesterol's too high or you're just curious about heart health strategies that go beyond medication, this episode's for you because sometimes the numbers don't tell the whole story. So my story is for, probably about 6 years now. Every time I go in for my annual physical, my doctor always says, your cholesterol's too high. And they said, try lifestyle, try diet, but I have a pretty good diet. I exercise very regularly. And this last time I went, 2 times ago when I went in, my cholesterol had gone higher in spite of my lifestyle, but I have good blood pressure. I'm like 110/60. My A1C is 5%. My triglycerides are 79 milligrams per deciliter. I exercise 5 times a week, and they always want to put me on a statin now the last few times. And finally, this last doctor, the new doctor I had, said, well, I know you're not going to go on a statin from what you've told me about yourself. So why don't you try this coronary artery calcium scan and then we'll talk about it. So I asked her about that test and I went and I took it. And thank goodness I have a doctor, that's open to new ideas because then I can look at what my real numbers are and look at my risk without just guessing that I may have a problem that I don't have. Quick heads up, I'm not a doctor. This video is for educational purposes only. Always talk to your healthcare provider before you make any kind of changes to your medications or your supplements or your health routine. So you might be asking, what's a CAC test? A lot of people don't like medical tests, and this one is really simple. The good news is cheap too. You can get it prescribed, and then maybe your insurance will cover it. In a lot of cases, it doesn't, but it's only around $100. You can get it at the online pharmacy. I got mine at Quest. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. There's no dye or contrast, so you don't have to worry if you can get allergic reactions because you just go in, you lay down, you go into the device, you go out of the device. Mine was open, so it wasn't like an enclosed MRI type of thing. And it's very low radiation. It's about what it would be, what you would be exposed to if you were flying cross country on an airliner. And the great thing is it shows you how much actual plaque is in your arteries. It's not just some predicted risk. It's, more than just, your LDL is high, you have to get on a statin. So when I got mine, I was very happy. Mine turned out to be 0% calcification in my arteries. And how the scoring works is 0 is no visible plaque, 1 to 99 is mild plaque, 100 to 399 is moderate plaque, and more than 400 is a high risk. So this can be really helpful, especially if you're in the lower numbers and you're in that maybe zone where maybe you should get on a statin, maybe you shouldn't, and there's other things you could possibly do to help lower your risk. Many doctors will want to put you on a statin if you have high LDL. And for those of you who don't or haven't heard of statins, what they are their medications that will lower your LDL. What they do is they block an enzyme that your liver uses to make the cholesterol. They're commonly prescribed with people that have had known cardiovascular disease, which isn't the problem. The problem is they're also prescribed very often for people as a primary prevention, people that have never been diagnosed with heart disease, just in case maybe they have heart disease because their LDL is high. Statins will lower the cholesterol and reduce inflammation, and they can stabilize any plaque that you have in your system. But you can get some side effects. So that's where the problem comes in. So people report muscle aches, brain fog, insulin resistance, and I think this is the big one. If you're prone to diabetes in any way, this can promote that risk. The catch here is too, LDL is an indicator that there may be a problem. LDL in itself is not bad. It is not the bad cholesterol like you hear it talked about. There's nothing inherently bad about LDL other than the fact it can transport the plaque and leave it behind in your arteries. But that doesn't mean you actually have plaque in your arteries. Context matters. It's only harmful if it's oxidized or inflamed, or if you're combining it with other risk factors. You can think of LDL as like a submarine fleet. The LDL particles are tiny submarines navigating their way through your bloodstream. So even though a lot of cells can make their own cholesterol, the cholesterol that goes through your blood is made in the liver. So think of this submarine transporting all of the important things that LDL transports. It transports fat-soluble vitamins, your A, D, E, and K. It also, and this is an important one, it helps your immune system because bacteria in your system can present toxins, and these little submarines now can pick up those toxins, load them up, and take them out of your body. And also LDL helps make your sex hormones and your cortisol. So those are all important things that you really can't live without. And then your submarine will surface at target locations like cells and tissues, deliver their load, and help your body stay energized. So again, the submarines themselves are not dangerous. The danger occurs when the waters are rough. So inflammation could be like underwater mines. High blood sugar could be the corrosion. And smoking could be like sonar jamming. So in calm, open waters, the subs glide along smoothly, delivering life-sustaining cargo. But in rough seas or narrow, jagged passages, they can get stuck or damaged, just like what happens in your arteries. Often, how it's determined if you have a risk, doctors look at a couple of different scores. In Canada, there's something called the Framingham score. In the US, we use something called the pooled cohort equation. And what these factor is they look at age, they look at gender, your blood pressure, cholesterol, and your smoking status. They don't even look at your plaque. So there's not a CAC test to be found in this equation. So somebody could be flagged for an immediate risk, even if your glucose, your triglycerides, and your lifestyle are all excellent. That's where it could be important for you to get a CAC test. So it'll show what's really happening in your arteries. It might spare you from meds that are just purely based on statistics. So what else can you look for other than just getting a CAC test? So the CAC test, I think, is important because it shows the calcified or the hardened plaque that's in your arteries, but unfortunately, it doesn't show the soft plaque. So you could still be at risk. However, most of the soft plaque eventually does calcify. So a score of 0 means that your short-term, like 5 to 10 year risk, given all your other indicators are pretty low, you're at a pretty low risk for heart disease. But to round out that picture, you should look at your A1C and fasting glucose to check if you're insulin resistant, because that is a red flag. Look at your triglycerides, your HDL, the higher that is, the more helpful. Look at your blood pressure. Look at your waist to hip ratio. And there's another test that I think is very important to do called the HSCRP, which just looks at inflammation in your total system, which can be an indicator that something's going on, something's going wrong in your body. But if all of those are in good shape and you have a CAC of a low CAC or a 0 CAC, you may not need a statin, and you can focus on a lifestyle shift and not on prescription medication. Now, how common is a score of 0? So in ages 40 to 54, like 56% of people have a 0 score. So it's not really that big of a deal. When you're that age bracket, you really should have a low CAC score. But when you're 65 to 75, only 18% have a 0. And then if you're over 75, only about 10 to 20% have a 0. So that matters because, like I said, it's very common in the 40s. So if you're in that age bracket and you get a CAC test, don't feel overly safe because pretty much everybody's going to have a good CAC score. But if you're 65 years older and you have a low CAC score, then it's a really good indicator that your arteries are aging gracefully, regardless of what your cholesterol reading is. How pharmaceutical companies typically treat LDL, they treat it as a disease, not just as a risk factor. So the typical recommendations to the medical community, if you have LDL that's greater than 190, high dose statin, no discussion. If you have LDL 130 to 189, they recommend a statin if there's other risk factors. But again, what's left out? Do you actually have any plaque? What's your other metabolic health markers? Like I said, A1C, your triglycerides. Lifestyle, are you willing to make some changes? Are you willing to try out exercise or some diet changes to lower those cholesterol numbers before you actually get on a medication? Also important, a lot of people don't think about it, but sleep is very important in your overall health and stress management. So your values matter and context matter. It's not just an algorithm. It's not just if this, then that. You have to look at the whole person. And I think that's what's missing a lot in our medical community. And unfortunately, in the US, 35 out of 100 adults over 40 are on statins, and that number has tripled since 2008 due to new guidelines. Many are prescribed statins without any known heart disease just because of cholesterol. They're high cholesterol, they get put on a statin. And I'm not saying statins can't be helpful. I think there is a time and a place for them, but I think you have to look at your health, talk to your doctor, and make sure that you meet all those criteria. It's not just a single criteria without looking at the total picture. So again, why the CAC test score can matter. If you have a zero risk or really low CAC score for the next 5 to 10 years, your risk could be very low. So rather than saying yes to decades of medication, you could say, let's retest in a few years. I'll make some few health changes, and then we can see, what my health looks like in 5 years. But if your CAC is high, like 100 or over, that is a strong reason to consider a statin. But again, you're treating yourself based on real data. You're not just saying, oh, I've got high LDL, I probably need a statin. And you may ask, okay, well, if this test is so great, why aren't people using it more? Why haven't I heard of this test? And there's a few reasons. And one is it's cheap. Nobody profits from this test. So, that's really sad in this day and age. But, that is something that you have to look at. Corporations want to make money, and this test doesn't really make money for people. Often it's not covered by insurance. And I don't think people realize that, under $100 or around $100 for your health is really nothing to spend. And then also doctors are time limited and they can default to the guidelines. Now, look at that in contrast to Europe and Canada, where they have much more conservative models because their governments are paying for it. So they have less of their people on statins than we do in the United States. So the next time you go to your doctor, if you're concerned about your heart health or if you're concerned about cholesterol, ask them these questions. Ask what your real 10-year risk is. Ask if they'll give you a prescription for a CAC, especially before they put you on a statin prescription. Find out what your blood work looks like. Find out your triglycerides, your A1C, your glucose. I love that other test, the HRCRP for inflammation. Another one I think that's not typically done in your regular physical blood work, but something that is a really good baseline to get so you know where your inflammation's at. You can compare year to year. And, more personal care. Just take care of yourself. Exercise, get rest. Try to control your stress. You deserve to know if you actually have heart disease before committing to a lifelong medication. Look at a CAC test. See if your doctor agrees. Try to get a better picture. Find out what your real risks really are. A score of 0 can buy you time. You can make those lifestyle changes and not necessarily jump on a statin. And again, before we go, I'm not a doctor. This video is just for informational purposes. So before you start a statin or get a CAC test, be sure to talk to your healthcare provider. And please, if you like this video, I would love it if you would like it and subscribe to it. It lets me know that the material that I'm providing is useful and that you would like to hear more of this type of information. Also, if there's something you'd like to know more about, I would love it if you would drop a comment and let me know what type of health-related or longevity type of thing you all are interested in hearing more about. And I'd love it also if you would listen to my next video that will be out soon, which will be on GLP-1 secrets that the media is not talking about. And again, I want to thank John Patty for providing the intro and outro music. And thank you all for being here.